It's time to really look at the class, and we're going to start out with just the Devy Player of the Week in review. We're going to check back in with the guys I've already talked about this season. So first one up is John Metchie, who is the guy I said last week, and he ended up having a pretty good game. He did not get injured, so looking good there. We've got the stats on the board here. 52 receptions for 601 yards and 5 touchdowns. Only averaging 11.6 yards per catch. He's obviously turning into a possession receiver. The deep threat we saw last year that John Metchie, gave to the Alabama offense, we're not seeing it this year now that he's the number one guy on the team. He's not sitting behind Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle, drawing that, the third best cornerback. Now he's the number one guy, and we're just not seeing him get down the field and create that separation. But man, he is reliable around the line of scrimmage and in that, intermediate area. As the year progressed on, he got a lot better. Started out, new quarterback Bryce Young had some issues, but 76 yards first game, 70, 49, 45, 35. It was going in the wrong direction for John Metchie, but the past 2 weeks, he's combined for 18 receptions and 138 yards and 3 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks, which is pretty impressive. He's really seemed to have that chemistry with Bryce Young now. So he's starting to get back up in there to be maybe one of those top 5 wide receivers in this draft class. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of guys in that I'd say 2 to 8 range that, are really head to head for that top 5. After John Metchie, we got Dontay Demus Jr. This is where the curse started. I talked about Dontay Demus, and he destroyed his knee that next Thursday, I think it was. Maybe a Friday game. It was very, very sad. And especially because, he's playing for my Maryland Terps. So after a decent showing in the first 3 or 4 games, he's out for the season. He was a senior, so I'm not sure what he does. If he tries to come back, he will have another year of eligibility thanks to COVID. Or maybe he goes and tries to show up healthy at the Senior Bowl. I'm not sure exactly what his true timeline is to be healthy again. It's college sports. They don't really tell you all the details. After Demus, we got Quentin Johnston. This is another guy where the curse continued. Fortunately, he did not get injured, but I talked about him, and then in a game that scored over 70 points, he had 0 catches. So that was pretty crappy. But since that game, Quentin Johnston has started to show some consistency. He's shown up big for Texas Christian University, TCU. 6'4", 200 pounds. We talked about he's a little lanky, but he's a deep threat. In the last 2 games, he has combined for 13 catches for 298 yards. He's averaging a ridiculous 19.5 yards per catch right now throughout the season. After Quentin Johnston, we got Trey Henderson, freshman running back for Ohio State, true freshman, showing up and just dominating with Ohio State. Took a couple games to really get into the swing of things, but since then, he has been one of the best players in the college football landscape. It's a guy that I would say is worthy of, being one of the Heisman nominations so far, but he's a true freshman. He probably won't get it. 79 attempts, 693 yards, averaging 8.8 yards per carry with 11 touchdowns so far. Just absolutely dominant and impressive to just continue the bloodlines of the Ohio State running backs. We got all those guys, and then last but not least, the first guy I talked about this season, Mataeo Durant for Duke, running back. He is doing well. He's continuing to do well. The first 2 games of the season, he came out with 3 touchdowns in each game and over 100 yards. It was pretty impressive. Since then, he's kind of slowed down a bit with the touchdowns, but he's still out there being the workhorse for Duke. 166 attempts, 870 yards for a 5.2 average and 9 touchdowns. Mataeo Durant is a guy that I still think is going to get some draft capital come spring. He's just not going to be one of the top tier guys, but I can definitely see him going day 3. And hey, maybe he's next Khalil Herbert, guy we've been talking about for the past couple of days. And that's the Devy Season Player of the Week in review.
Also, don't forget, if you want more Devy content, you want to ask or fire away at any of our Devy guys, feel free to hit up the Dynasty Rewind Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. $1 a month gets you the group chat. $5 a month gets you access to everything. You get the group chat, you get bonus podcasts, you get Dan's weekly DFS video, and you also get any, like I said, podcast written content that we do. You get basically more access to us than you would get just through Twitter. So definitely check that out, and it helps us, and then in turn, we continuously help you guys as well.